Hey, I want to welcome you to the Darin Sargent Show. This is the podcast where you get life advice from a single-handed perspective. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw what I did. If not, go to youtube.com/@Darin Sargent Leadership. I'm glad you've joined us in this episode of the podcast. And today we are going to be talking about the attitude of an advance. Thanks for tuning in. I also want to say thank you to over 30 nations and countries that have now joined in listening to the Darin Sargent Show. Wherever you're listening to this today, thank you for joining. Check us out at YouTube. We're adding more and more things to the podcast. Things are happening, and I'm excited. Let's dive into today's episode, the attitude of an advance. Thanks for tuning in. I found myself wondering if I was going to even be alive after this insane challenge that was before me. You see, I was on top of a massive snow-covered mountain. I was only 10 years of age, and I had these long boards that were attached to my feet that wore some uncomfortable boots, and I wasn't given any poles at all to use to move myself forward. In fact, I was given nothing but a word from my dad who said, "You got this." The instructions were, "You got this, just follow me and do as I do." But Dad, I said with uncertainty and a little bit of fear, to be honest, I've never done this before. It's cold, my nose is running, and I only have one hand, and you didn't even give me a ski pole to help move myself in the direction that everybody appears to be going. His reply, "You got 2 feet?" I said, "Well, yeah, then you're okay. Push with your feet and follow me." And forward down the mountain we went. Now, you probably guessed it. It was my first time snow skiing, and my dad didn't pay for lessons. He didn't put me in some fancy school. He didn't let me stay in the warm lodge at the bottom of the mountain sipping on hot chocolate with marshmallows bobbing up and down in my cup. No, I was going to learn to ski today. That's what my dad told me. This is the day you are going to learn to do this. And when you figure it out, I'll reward you with ski poles. Scratch that. A singular ski pole. Because, hey, I was a little short-handed. Now, fast forward several years. I'm now a single-handed, single ski pole, semi-professional skier in my own mind. And I'm waiting under a ski lift as my brother, who had followed me down a black diamond mogul monster of a ski run, was coming when a man on the lift above me yells out, "Hey, did you lose a pole?" To which I responded extremely loudly, "Yes, and there's an arm attached to it. Find it quickly. I'm gonna die." Now, I thought it was one of my finer moments, but as he speedily was pulled higher up the mountain to face his downhill destiny, I heard some words come out of his mouth that my mama told me I could never say. Now, had I stayed in the lodge on the day I was supposed to learn to ski, I would never have enjoyed years of the sport I came to love so much growing up in southern Idaho. I would have never experienced the acrobats of my brothers and I as we propelled ourselves off of 40 and 50-foot cliffs into the white powder of a winter wonderland. But it all started when my dad said, "You can do this. Just advance down the mountain." Now, if I would have had options, which I didn't, if you know Harold Sargent, I could have even stayed where I was when the ski lift dropped me off at the top of that rugged snow-covered mountain as I begged my dad to just get one of those snow patrol guys with the fancy injury sled to carry me down. That kind of looked pretty cool, by the way, when they would speed past me with some kid who tried to dodge a tree, but instead face planted into a pine. But no, there was no staying in the lodge. There was no staying put on the top of the mountain to watch others. There was no even going back to the car to sit and read my Richie Rich and Archie comic books while I waited for the day to end for us to go home, where it was warm, by the way. No, my dad was determined I was going to ski that day, and ski I did. Did I have some falls? Yeah. Did I crash into some trees? You bet. Did I find myself stuck in the snow at times and my dad had to pull me out? Absolutely. But what I did not do was quit. Even if I wanted to, and there were a few times I did, my dad would not allow it. He had a job to do. He was doing more than teaching me how to ski. He was putting something into my spirit that would guide me the rest of my life, and that was the attitude of an advance. Now, no matter how things may have looked in my life, the challenges that often caused me to want to shrink back and doubt I could do it because of the condition of my birth, my parents placed something inside of me that said, let's go for it. You were not created to sit still. You were not formed to just let life pass you by. You were not brought into this world to just exist. You were created to advance, to go forward, to reach for your destiny. I think so often we allow our doubt to disqualify us from our destiny. We allow our fear and uncertainty to cloud our vision, and we can't even see clearly where God wants to take us. I heard recently a reference once again to the story of the lepers in 2 Kings 7, and it's a tale of great revelation. These 4 lepers were sitting at the gate. Famine had come into the land. The enemy had surrounded the city. These were 4 lepers, 4 unwanted men, 4 unclean men, 4 disease-ridden men that had been dealt a harsh blow by life as leprosy was tearing through their bodies, causing them to face an uncertain demise. But they started talking one day. We're in a famine. This is a bad situation. We're going to starve if we stay here. There's no place that's going to help us. If we just sit here, we're going to die. But if we go back to the city, no one's got food there either. We're going to die there. So what do we do? As they begin to discuss their dilemma, one of them said, why don't we advance? What do you mean? Let's go forward toward the enemy camp. You're crazy. You're absolutely nuts. Yes, advance, he said. We're going to die anyways. Let's go toward the enemy's camp. Maybe they will give us a double animal-style In-N-Out cheeseburger and fries before we fade off into the sunset. And advance, they did. And what they discovered when they chose to advance was a buffet that would have made the Bellagio buffet in Vegas look like a picnic on steroids. They had enough to eat, and they had leftovers to boot. They decided as they were just cramming the food into their mouth, they all of a sudden came to this revelation, this isn't good. There are people in bad shape back in the city. Let's go invite them to our buffet. We all have a choice in life to allow our issues, our challenges, our limits to keep us from moving in the direction God designs for you and I to go. You can stay where you are. That's your choice. You can even go back to where you once were, but there's nothing there for you either. The other option is the one that I'm talking about today. You can advance. And when you advance, you will begin to discover that God has been waiting on you to show you his plan for you is greater than the fear you have of what is ahead of you. You can stay in the lodge if you want with hot cocoa warming your hands. You can stay at the edge of the mountain watching everyone with smiles on their face as they move forward to go down the hill, or you can experience the exhilaration of the wind in your face, the snow under your skis as you fly forward with winterized bliss. It's all about your attitude. You can believe you can't, or you can believe you can. You can overcome those beliefs, those limiting beliefs of your past or your present that has brought things into your life that has locked you down. Or you can say, I think I like the option of moving forward. It's the attitude of an advance. I challenge you today, move forward. Recognize what God has in store for you. Don't settle for the status quo. Step into your destiny. I promise the moment you move forward will be the moment that God starts working for you. And I have learned, if God is for us, who or what can be against us? Thanks for listening and watching this podcast. Glad that you're here today. Join in on the YouTube journey by going to youtube.com at Darin Sargent Leadership. We want you to join us. This show, by the way, has been sponsored by Ash & Stone Skincare. It's my daughter's company. That's why I can say it. Go to ashenstoneskincare.com. Enter the promo code TDSS20. You'll get 20% off. Tell her I sent you. Thanks for joining. Check us out on the podcast and on YouTube at youtube.com at Darin Sargent Leadership. Thanks for joining. Have an awesome day. And remember the attitude of an advance.